Hi everyone, welcome to Aries season. I'm Jenny Fitterer, and this is the first of my zodiacal season forecast workshops. So I'm going to be hosting these every season as we get to a new sign. This is the first one. I'm sort of playing with the order of operations. It might not stay consistent every time, depending on kind of what I feel like or what kind of is popular. So we're going to keep it pretty simple for today. I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of the planetary transits that are going to be happening during Aries season, and then I'm going to do a tarot reading for the collective for the entire season. So this isn't a sign specific workshop. This is for everybody. So it's going to be relevant to you no matter where you're coming from. So that's what we're gonna dive right into today. I did just want to acknowledge first and foremost, I know that there's a lot of different opinions on land acknowledgements when it comes to settlers living on Indigenous territories. So at the moment, I'm going to start with one because that kind of feels right for me to honor the land that I'm living on right now. Again, I know some people have different opinions on that, but I'm just going to acknowledge that I personally right now am residing and living on the Esquimalt and Songhees Nation territories and the Kwanghan territory in colonial BC. So this is where I live and do my spiritual practice. And so I'm very appreciative to the people who have stewarded this land for a very long time. And yeah, so that's where I'm at. It's really great if you are a settler to kind of maybe get to know a little bit about the land that you're living on and not be totally ignorant of the people that came before you. And so that's where I'm at right now. So I'm just going to dive right in to talking about Aries season. So Aries season, all the times I'm talking about are going to be Pacific Standard Time. So the dates might be slightly different depending on where you are in the world. But Aries season starts this year on March 20th and it runs all the way through till April 19th. And Aries season is the beginning of the zodiac. It's the first of the zodiac signs in the Northern Hemisphere. This is the beginning of spring. No matter where you are, this starts with equinox, whether that's the spring or autumn equinox. That's what's starting off with Aries, where the sun and the day and night are at equal balance. So we're starting off the year in balance, and we've just closed off Pisces season, the energetic last year, and we're starting with some fresh new energy. So Aries season is a fire sign. It's the spark of life. It's this creative new birth, and it has this much energy of an infant, like this young, fresh thing, full of new life, full of enthusiasm, but not necessarily the most lived and wise kind of energy yet. It's very impulsive, very like, what can be new? This raw fire that hasn't really been put to any particular direction yet. So that is this kind of beginning spark of energy that's going to be starting with us. So that's going to be starting on March 20th, which could be today, could be whenever it is that you're reading this. Watching this, we're reading this with your eyes. So then what we're going to have on the first kind of major planetary transit is the planet Mercury is going to be moving out of Pisces into Aries, joining the sun in Aries on March 27th. So Mercury in Aries, Mercury is the planet of the mind, planet of communication, thought, speech. It's a very fast moving planet since it's the tightest orbit in the solar system. So it moves really, really quickly through the signs. So moving out of Pisces, which had our kind of watery, dreamlike sort of quality to thought, where your mental capacities may have not felt very direct, may have felt kind of just sort of really connected and to everything, which makes it feel like you don't have very strong boundaries of your thoughts or really able to pick up on what other people are thinking. That's going to have been Mercury in Pisces. And starting into Aries, Aries is very much a sign about me. It's very much about the ego and the self and a strong identity in self. So you're going to maybe feel this kind of almost snap back as Mercury changes from a sign that's very much about the collective thoughts and collective emotions, where you may have been really tapped in mentally to everybody around you. Suddenly there's going to be this pulling in back to your own kind of thought and your own kind of vision and saying, okay, what do I really think? What is my mental identity? What are my thoughts? What do I want to say? What is it that my vision kind of wants to be seen? And maybe a little bit more to the point of communicating kind of what you want to say, or being a little bit more like abrupt or impulsive, like jumping into conversations and really being able to champion with your words and your thoughts, your own kind of thoughts and energy. So That's going to be what's going to be happening on March 27th. So you might feel that from other people too, where you're kind of like, oh, I like it can, when Aries is not in its highest form, it can be like quite egotistical or self-centered. And so if you can kind of sometimes pick that up around other people, you're like, wow, nobody seems to, like, these people don't seem to be listening. They just want to talk about their own thing. And that might feel a little bit abrupt, but just kind of be aware that it's actually a really positive thing to spend an amount of time aligning your own mental capacity to what your own beliefs are, and then you can kind of do some give and take. But if people are kind of bringing their mental energy into their own thoughts for a while, like, be patient with the fact that that might actually be really important for people in their process, and be patient with yourself too, so you don't immediately have to label yourself selfish as suddenly feeling like, I actually really want my voice to be heard, or I think my thoughts matter. That's exactly what's kind of correct for this energy, especially if you're kind of brimming with this new fire energy and there's new ideas and new creative sparks, the wanting to kind of share your own vision and share like this new kind of impulsive, joyous energy. That's really lovely. So just make sure you do it in a respectful way, but don't like try to stifle down that voice, because that's what Mercury is really wanting to do. So I'm gonna burp. Don't mind me. So the next transit we're going to have is Venus is going to be moving into Pisces on April the 5th. So Venus is, among other things, is sort of like the planet of the like feminine consciousness, and feminine in like whether you're in a male body or a female body, it doesn't really matter. Venus is that kind of feminine essence, but it's also our sense of values and relationships. So the things that we value and want to cultivate, the things that we find beautiful, the things that we just really want to put our time and energy into, especially when it comes to how we relate to others. That's kind of some of the things that Venus works with. So Venus is moving into Pisces, which is this water sign that's very, very emotional, very sensitive, to like empathetic to the emotional currents of others. So it's very aware of the collective feeling and how we're all very interconnected. So when Venus moves into Pisces, we are going to be feeling this deeper sense of valuing the emotions of the collective, and valuing, making sure that nobody's left behind, and we're not just elevating one particular people group or elevating ourselves or only thinking of our own emotional needs. There's this really feeling into the fact that we are actually not as separate and disconnected from each other as we might sometimes pretend to be, but we're all here on the same planet. We're all kind of swimming in the same emotional soup, and Venus brings more of a focus on that. So yeah, there'll be this sense of like really wanting to lean into connections in community, but also that can come with it, just with Pisces energy in general, like a deep emotional sensitivity, which can be very upsetting. If there's lots of stress or emotional turmoil or hurt or hatred or violence in the world, you feel that so much stronger with Pisces energy. So there can be this kind of heavier sense of grief, but Venus is also a very buoyant planetary energy a lot of the time. So it really brings a lot of hope. So whereas we may have been kind of, since we're just coming out of Pisces season in general, we may have felt very heavy, with not being able to separate our emotions from those of the collective. But Venus brings in hope to say, okay, like, what if I actually inject my own love and care, and maybe I can turn these emotions around. The fact that I'm feeling all of this, I can feel what the other feels, and I actually feel like if I put my love and my energy and my attention into the pain of the collective, that's going to change and that's going to ripple out. So Venus moving into Pisces can help with a sort of apathy or despair that we may have been feeling with like just being really aware of all that energy. So that's a kind of really exciting time. Pisces is also a mystical sign, in terms of Pisces is very connected to like the divine cosmic essence, or just like if you use terms like God or spirit. Pisces is like the connection that we as incarnate beings have to the divine, that spark of spirit that we all have kind of calling louder to its home in the divine consciousness. And that connection Pisces wants to say, well, I've been incarnated for a while and I think I'd like to connect and merge into spirit a little bit more. So whether that's through mystical divine divinatory practice, or just leaning more into your religious or spiritual community, or just being in ritual or ceremony a little bit more, that sort of Venus moving into Pisces is really going to want to honor that, and spend a bit more time. Venus is also a planet of beauty, and art. So you might be finding a little bit more beauty in spiritual symbols or in ceremony, and feeling that really, or especially ceremony in community, where you may have like a solo spiritual practice, but with Venus and Pisces, you might be more drawn to include others in your spiritual practice, or be in ceremony in groups. So this is in April 5th. We're going to be feeling a lot more of that sort of energy. Then we're back to Mercury again. Mercury moved really, really quick through Aries right now, and Mercury is going to be in Taurus on April 10th. So it's a super fast transit right now where Mercury is in the sky. So Mercury landing in Taurus, I'm going to burp again. Excuse me, shouldn't have had so much had lunch right before filming this. So Mercury in Taurus. Taurus is an earth sign, and we've been in this kind of airy, watery feeling for a while, and then Aries is more fire energy, and so we haven't had a lot of grounding earth elements for a little while. So Mercury popping into Taurus is going to be grounding our thoughts a little bit. So we just had Aries really, really quickly just Mercury playing in Aries very quickly, giving us a quick new spark of inspiration, maybe some new thoughts or ideas that we want to cultivate this season. And then Taurus is like, okay, let's get practical. Let's think about this. Let's actually do some work. Taurus is very steady, very reliable, also very stubborn. So with Mercury in Taurus, you're probably going to maybe be really quite committed to working on your particular thoughts or ideas that just came up, and not wanting to jump to the next thing, holding on with this kind of Taurus stubborn, consistent work of, no, I've got this thought, I've got this belief, I really want to chew on it for a while, I really want to work on it, and I really want to grow. Taurus is very connected with the earth and planting, the season of planting and growth. So there's this sense of but it takes time. So the patience of Taurus, and the knowing that you don't rush it, you got to keep working. And just because you don't see your fruit necessarily right after you planted it, that's fine. That's part of this patience and goal setting, and understanding that everything happens in its proper time. So Mercury being such a fast planet and going really fast right now, it's going to get a little bit of this slowdown with some Taurus energy. So that might be really helpful if you've been experiencing a lot of really racing thoughts, or feeling just my head's kind of every which way. That's going to bring a little bit more steady kind of energy. So that's going to be April 10th. And then we have Mars moving into Pisces on April 14th. So Mars and Venus were really close in conjunct the last month, and because Mars is a slower moving planet, they came together. Venus and Mars had a little union, and now Venus is moving faster than Mars, so Mars and Venus are separating a little bit. So Mars is the divine masculine presence. Again, masculine being in your feminine or male body, doesn't really matter. This is also the planet of action. So how we initiate force, and how we take action instead of just thinking about things or letting things happen to us. Mars is how we impact the world, and how we are actionable, that kind of masculine force. Mars is also the god of war, so sometimes this is conflict, how we deal with conflict, how we approach conflict. Is going to be all kind of ruled by Mars. And Mars is going to be in Pisces, which is a very contrasting energy for Mars, who wants direct action, wants things to be really clear and go get it. And Pisces is this still very kind of ethereal, foggy, nebulous sort of feeling of kind of getting in touch with everything all at once, where it's kind of hard to make clear, definitive action, because everything feels like kind of one cosmic bubble of oceanic feeling. It's hard to discern and define specific things, and Mars likes things to be defined. So when Mars moves into Pisces, it may feel like it's hard to make direct choices, or it's hard to be really clear on what you're doing. If you kind of have been feeling like you're working really hard and moving, all of a sudden you're I want to do things, I have this energy, and I have this kind of some Aries energy too, but I don't really know how to put it somewhere. So instead of trying to force direct action and being frustrated that it's harder to move in a linear fashion, this is a time to, if you can try to kind of release the idea that you need to be getting things done in a super linear way, you can take advantage of the fact that Pisces has these kind of this watery element, this kind of different flow, and realizing that, okay, being in action doesn't always, sometimes it can, the best way to be in action is to pause and to receive or to listen to what other people are doing, and then, oh wow, there's a different idea that maybe if I just followed in my direct plan of action, I would have missed out this opportunity. And maybe if I take this route, wow, I'm actually going a lot further than, getting in the flow of where the river takes me, even if it goes around different bends, is going to be actually way faster than like cutting across cross country in a straight line. So if you can like take advantage of what Pisces offers, which is about like dreaming a different way, not having to be so straightforward. There's also, because we're moving into Aries season, the sun will be in Aries at that point, and which is a fire sign, but we still have a lot of water energy with Venus and Mars in Pisces. When you put fire and water together, on the one hand, you can douse the fire, or on the other hand, you can heat the water and you can produce steam. So steam is a really interesting element for the potential for action and the potential for dispersion. So steam, when it's harnessed, is this like, the super compressing of these contradictory elements. But when steam, that energy, that expansive energy, is harnessed, you can really create and move things. You can make all kinds of energy happen with that explosion of power, or it can just into the air and go nowhere. So we've got this feeling in Aries season right now, because there's so much water energy still added to that fire, is you can kind of go either way. This could either be like a really interesting, like cooking an expansive sort of time of bringing in this new energetic season while still being really connected to that collective energy of Pisces, or we're thinking and moving forward about what our dreams are, what are my dreams with Aries energy, but being connected to how can I help the collective, how can what I offer as an individual, Aries is very individual, offer everybody in the collective for our well-being, which is Pisces. So if you can marry that water and fire and produce this like expansive heat, then there's going to be a lot of really cool things you can do with that. Or you'll get, just befuddled. The steam will just disperse and not feel very useful. That can go, that may happen as well. So if you try to fight the fact that these elements are really contradictory, then you're probably just going to be in that kind of dispersed, sort of muddled sort of feeling. But if you can really like take the risk of combining those elements and risking that discomfort, I think that there's going to be a lot of really interesting things that come from this Aries season, because unlike a lot of because where the planets are is going to be different each season. When Aries brings in this really self-motivated, individualizing energy, if it's hyper potent, that can be kind of risky, where we suddenly don't care about each other anymore. But with this much Pisces energy still present, I think there's some really, really cool opportunities for us to be really moving forward still as a collective, but without losing our individual selves. Like, we don't have to subsume ourselves into the collective and never exist as individuals, but neither is it healthy to only champion what you want at the expense of everybody else. So if we can keep that duality of the individual being a part of the collective and building into the collective, being carried by the collective, but still being distinct, I think that's really interesting opportunity to get to lean into. So those are the main planetary transits. I gotta stop myself from getting too excited, because otherwise this workshop's gonna go a very long time. I'll just briefly touch on the moon phases, because in every season the moon phases are, there's a new moon and there's a full moon. Sometimes there's two, depending on, sometimes there's two new moons or two full moons, depending on where it is in the month. But we're going to have the new moon in Aries on March 31st. And then the full moon is in Libra on April 16th. So that's going to be the moon phases. I'm not going to touch too heavily on the moon phases, at some point I might do a workshop just describing to you new moon and full moon energy. There's tons of full moon and new moon workshops out there online. If you're interested in finding them, I might even leave you a link for one or two that I personally like to explore with, but I'm not going to cover that in this workshop. But I'll leave you a link to my favorite full moon and new moon workshops if you want to play with that. So that's it for the astrology transits. Which means next we're going to get into the tarot readings. So if you've been following my monthly horoscopes, tarot horoscopes that I've been doing for the last, 5-6 months, you'll be more familiar with my Salvador Dali tarot deck, which I love. So we're going to be pulling just a single card for the collective for Aries season. So this is going to be for everybody. If you want more individualized tarot guidance, then you can check out, I still have the March tarot horoscopes up, and then obviously in April I'll be having my fresh ones there, so you can take a look on my YouTube page to check those out. And we're just gonna keep shuffling, see what card wants to come out. This is always the fun part, where want that one? Let's do that one. Okay, here we go. What do we got for Aries season? Okay, we have the Two of Cups. This is what looks like the right way up. So we have this female figure on a bed, lying naked in a bed, and this winged man leaving the bed. And all around we have this profile, this face of a big nose man, bit of beard, and the eye here of the profile. It's also sitting right on the stomach of the woman. Up here we have this kind of winged Hermes sign. 2 cups here. So this is 2 of Cups, what we've got coming up for this month. Just gonna look in the big book, see what we've got. Okay, 2 of Cups, your emotional range. This card shows a scene from the painting of Cupid and Psyche, the Greek myth as related by the Roman Apuleius, might have got that name wrong, in his work The Golden Ass, tells the story of how the human Psyche and the divine Cupid longed for each other and how, after many trials, they were finally united. That love can indeed give wings to the lovers is symbolized by the yellow caudasus of Hermes, the 2 intertwined serpents, and the winged lion's head. The caudasus and winged lion were inspired by the 2 of Cups tarot card by Rider-Waite-Smith. These images represent both the happy uniting of 2 people in love and their fatal entanglement. On the abdomen of the prostrate Psyche, we recognize a big, wide open eye. This is part of a face which has been drawn around the scene in silhouette. On the left, the lips and the hairy chin of this head can be seen, which is reminiscent of a well-known portrait by Rembrandt. The unkempt hair on the chin and on the back of the head also points to certain characters in the story of the Golden Ass. All in all, this is a thoroughly ambiguous and complex picture. The 2 of Cups card represents the polarities of our emotional life, sympathy and antipathy, affection and repulsion. Each of us has to learn to deal with the 2 souls dwelling in our breast. As long as emotional matters are disturbed, you will not find your true identity. Our spiritual growth depends on the clarification of ambiguous feelings, leading to emotional maturity. Practical advice. The validity of your feelings should not depend on the approval or disapproval of others. Avoid false compromises in emotional and intimate matters. It is of utmost importance that you learn to deal purposefully with your emotional needs and feelings. Okay, so this is an interesting card. So what's kind of coming up for me is a couple different things. So with the 2 of Cups and this kind of polarity, talking about, the polarity of our emotions, our emotional range, that kind of feels a bit like what I was talking to about that Pisces energy of like, collective empathy for everyone, and being very kind of dissolved into the consciousness of the collective. And then this Aries energy, very individual, very much about the self, and very connected just to the ego. But since we have in this Aries season, we have this Pisces energy from a few of these planets, and then Aries as well, it's this kind of polarity of the individual versus the collective. And so we're already kind of dealing with this different energy of, my feelings, everybody's feelings, how my feelings play into everybody's feelings, how everybody's feelings influences my feelings. Like this feels this tension of how do I hold both of these as both being true, both being valid? Am I going to get confused by always having to pick either or? Can I in some way honor both? So that Pisces Aries cusp energy, which is the switching over of the energetic year, starting with equinox, where which rolls me into the second thing that this card is kind of pulling up is we're in the spring equinox if you're in the northern hemisphere, autumn equinox if you're in the southern hemisphere, but this balance, this equal point of we're tipping from like one element of light or dark and balancing into the other, and for this brief moment everything stands still where our scales are totally balanced. And so we've got these two cups. We've got this last past year of Pisces energy is rolling into a new energetic year of Aries, and for a brief moment it's all balanced. What does that feel like for you? What does that, like, do you suddenly, like, can you notice the insight that you and the collective are equally important, but in such different kind of ways that's really hard to hold on to, where you can think, on the one hand, it's really easy to say, oh, I don't matter because mathematically the majority, the collective must always be served just so that most people are happy. But I don't need to be that happy. I feel guilt about taking care of my own emotions because I think, well, I've been raised to think that everybody's more important than me and I have to serve everybody. But the collective is just made up of a bunch of individuals. So how does that make sense? Because every individual has their own emotional rights as well. So, or should I go the other way and say, well, F everybody else, my emotions matter, my world matters, I'm only going to do and stick up for me. Neither of those things are very balanced if you only care about yourself or you only care about others and subsume your own needs to others. So there's this balance that we want to experience. And so as Aries season starts, this is a great time to try to really tap into the fact that the planet is in balance for a brief amount of time right now. The planet in its orbit around the sun. And how does that, how is that energy something that you can bring into your own understanding of your own emotional needs and in relation to those around you? So that's just sort of the two main kind of feelings that are coming up right now, is this equinox energy that starts off Aries season and this Pisces Aries kind of steam merging energy that you get to deal with. So what are you going to do? Everybody's going to deal with this differently. And this is one of those things where probably pulling in your own tarot horoscope is going to be helpful to give you specific insight into what your sign is going to be experiencing in this particular time. So this is an energy that everybody's going through, but depending on your particular astrology, you're going to feel it in a little bit of a different way. So this is something to hold onto as this backdrop that we're all going to be feeling this, and we all have this opportunity to examine the polarity and ambiguity of our emotional states. But you should probably check out your own personal horoscope on my YouTube page and get a little bit more specific insight. And that one's totally free. Just help yourself. So I'm just going to bring back into the card here. Is talking about emotional matters being connected to navigating the polarity of the emotional life as being very important to finding your true identity. So this energy is very Aryan. So the sense of identity, this personal identity. But Aries is not, it's not like Aries has a sense of their identity because they've gone through a lot of soul searching and they've done this philosopher kind of questing, or they've done a lot of spirit quests and they've figured out who they really are. This isn't a mature sense of identity, as in I have learned who I am and I have discovered who I am. This is an infantile sense of identity, which is just I am. It's not even more descriptive than that. Well, who are you? I don't necessarily know who, but I know that I am. It's that first spark of sentience, of identity. Just I am. And this is before you can even describe yourself in relation to others, because Aries doesn't really have a sense of others yet. Aries is just aware of the self, just waking up and realizing that Aries exists as this incarnated being, hasn't met anybody else yet, hasn't really even met their own body yet. It's just the sense of awareness. And so when trying to bring in this understanding of your own identity, it's not heady, it's not mental, it's not philosophical, it's presence based. It's just knowing. It's just by the fact that you're even asking this question of who am I, already you can say, well, I am a being. I am something that exists to ask this question. And if there are other, if you're attached to certain things about your identity, like, oh, I have to know who I am, or how will I ever, find out what I'm supposed to do in the world if I don't know who I am, and all the stress that we put on ourselves to, that we have to figure ourselves out. Otherwise, we're going to have a meaningless life. Otherwise, we're never going to succeed in our dreams because we don't even know what our dreams are. All of that stress comes later. That's not what Aries is dealing with. Aries is just, I'm awake. I'm here. Oh my God. How exciting. This is just this pure, very pure impulse and very pure awareness and energy and spark of amness. So that's a very joyous kind of feeling. There's a lot of joy to Aries, just aliveness, just this baby fresh out of the womb, just crying out the fact that it's here, and not being apologetic, not saying, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry that I caused you so much pain, mother, and coming out, I feel awful. Oh, I'm so nice that everybody could take care of me and put some clothes on me. A really good job, everybody. Babies don't care. Babies are just there. Babies are fully expecting to be loved and taken care of, but it's not even in that mental yet of expectation. It's just, I am here, I'm alive, I have these needs, and I'm crying out for the richness of my own existence that's here. And so that in baby is something that, we don't remember that. So how can we take that energy as adults, where we do have a sense of awareness, we do still have obligations to other people, but how can we bring in this kind of like fire rinsing, or purifying energy of, yeah, I'm still that somewhere inside of me. There's this light of life that says I'm here and I'm alive, and I get to participate in life, without any of the other stories I'm going to overlay on top of that yet. It's just, I have value, and I'm because I exist at all. So that's this Aries energy to overlay, which can then bring in this sense of, when you then maybe go through some of these more like emotional, okay, like what are these polarities that are coming up? It comes from this secure foundation of, well, I'm here. No matter what, I'm here. This is me. Things that are going to come over top, if I can just ground into the fact that I'm here, I'm a baby screaming in the world, and nobody can change that for me. And ultimately, all of us come from that same place, whether it's a quick little bud out of the earth, just getting its first sunlight, whether it's, thinking of puppies and kittens because I'm thinking of babies right now, just anything that has this new spark of life. We all start at that place. So it's a very equalizing force, that we can bring over into this new year. So, and which also then kind of ties into this other bit of the practical advice, which is the validity of your feelings should not depend on the approval or disapproval of others. Whether you are a happy gurgling baby enjoying the love of your mother, whether you're a screaming baby in the discomfort of your own sensations of being alive, that is your correct expression to feel that way. And some people are going to be really happy that you're honestly expressing yourself, and some people are going to be really irritated that it's now their problem to deal with. And that doesn't really matter. You can make those additional choices later of, okay, how do I want to manage my feelings? How do I feel like behaving in the real world that I have to? But no matter what, your feelings, that you have them, are valid. There are better ways to express them, sure, but so many times even just that first spark of emotion happens, and we're already telling ourselves stories about it. We're already judging ourselves, we're already terrified that it's not going to be received well, and we didn't all have the same experience as infants and children. We didn't all get to be taken care of with unconditional love when we had emotional outbursts. Some of us were left to cry it out for ourselves all alone, and get the sense that nobody's ever going to care for them in their emotions. And so your cups of emotions may have a lot of loneliness or isolation to them, and other people, had the experience growing up of getting very much in trouble for their emotions. And so it's very unsafe to share them. And those are all stories that have been put upon you that you can try to peel that back away to what was the start, just that Aryan pure energetic expression and those Aryan emotions of just having them and not having to judge them yet. It's certainly not easy. I'm not going to say that it is, but seems like it's an opportunity this particular Aries season for us to tap into just that absolute total right that you have to your own emotions, and tap into that, so that any sort of compromises that you may make in your emotional expression in the world is a choice, is negotiated between equals, is the healthy version of compromise, where we all just learn that I have emotions, you have emotions, we need to learn how to get together, and we need to learn how to not harm each other. But it's coming from a place of two sovereign emotional beings that have just as much a right to exist in the space as anybody else, and that evenness, that equality is where we want to be coming from, which is important, because again, like I said, in Aries season, a lot of people are can be very centered, which centering in yourself is a very positive thing, but being too self-centered or egotistical, where you are you at the expense of others, that's the dark shadow side of Aries that we want to avoid. So I feel like I'm probably going to stop, because I usually can go on and on with these particular things. So I'm just going to see if there's any last things that I want to bring up from this particular card. No, I'm not going to, because if I get too far into the Cupid and Psyche story, that's just going to go off on a whole other tangent. So we're just going to keep it with the kind of equinox balance, Aries, Pisces, emotional ambiguity, and owning your right to your emotional essence and emotional expression, and then learning how to do that in a productive way that is honoring of everybody's needs. So that's the card reading for Aries for everybody, which pretty much takes us to the end of this particular session. So that was your Aries season forecast. So yeah, I encourage you to check up the March tarot forecasts, horoscopes, just to get the beginning of its Aries season, and then coming up in April, keep an eye out for the April horoscopes as well. So reminder, horoscopes are free, but this is pay what you can. So if you aren't able to make any sort of contribution, then that's what you can, and I'm still happy that you're here with me and taking this all in, but if you are able to make any sort of donation, this is kind of my job, so that's going to be really helpful. The link it's a PayPal link. It's going to be in the description in this video. Please feel free to share this with anybody that you think could use a little bit of Aryan emotional loving, and I think that's it for that. So much love to you all. Thanks for joining me on my inaugural season forecast, and I will see you all next month.